spiritual community with a passion for serving and supporting others to recognize and embrace that they are amazing. This love of life and passion for purpose led her to start her own business. Jen has traveled locally and nationally as a speaker, writer, coach, sharing various messages, including Lead with Love and Your Life is Your Choice. Her diverse background includes working as an outreach coordinator for a top nonprofit organization. She's worked in real estate, direct sales, and criminal justice. She even worked at an all-male maximum security prison. That had to take some courage. Currently, Jen is serving patients at an acupuncture clinic as a part-time operations manager. When she's not in a service role, you might find her walking in nature, playing in her garden, or packing for her next travel adventure. So, Lake Cary Spiritual Community, help me welcome back Jen Grant.
Thanks, Ella. Good morning. Good morning. So I'm going to share with you a couple stories to kick off our Sunday together. The first one is from about 21 years ago. So I am a mother to one child, 26-year-old now, daughter. And I feel very blessed. Any mothers in the room might relate to this. I feel very blessed. She recently moved out, so she's living closer to me. I get to see her more than once every blue moon. It's been such a lovely experience. So about 21 years ago, she was in kindergarten. We were living up in a little town called Battle Lake. Anyone know Battle Lake? It's up by Alexandria. It's about 45 minutes northwest of Alexandria. We had just moved up there. We had a house fire earlier in the spring, and so we moved up there. My dad had a house, and he let us use his house. He had not yet retired, so we were up there living in his home, and I enrolled her for her first time in kindergarten in the little Battle Lake Elementary School up there. So just like any, first-time parent might do, you're a little nervous, a little anxious about sending your little one on the bus, and I did, and then I got in the car and I followed the bus to school and hid around the corners as I watched my little one experience her first day of school. Now, as time passed, she loved school. Wasn't the best student. Studious is maybe not her strong suit, but that's okay. Loved school, loved life, and really loved people. And one day I got a phone call from her teacher asking if I would please come in and visit with her. And I came in and sat down, and in my head I'm thinking, this is just going to go great. There's nothing wrong here. Of course she's going to have the best things to say about my little daughter, right? So we sit down, she's like, she struggles in school. She loves to read, but she struggles with some of the other things. But the biggest challenge I'm having with your daughter right now is she likes people too much. Like, oh, okay, well, what do I do about this? She's like, just, remind her that she needs to focus on herself and she needs to do her work, and maybe tell her to stop sharing her pencil. She'll share her pencil and then not have one to do her own work. Okay, well, maybe I'll just get her some extra pencils, I'm thinking. So I equip her, we get her some extra pencils and send her back on her way, meanwhile having conversations about making sure that you're doing your work. Couple weeks go by and I got a call from the principal. Is this Jasnee's mom? Yeah, this is Jasnee's mom. Well, I need to talk to you about your daughter. We have this situation that has been happening, and I noticed it, and I've been watching to see how consistent it is. She's late to class quite a bit, and we didn't know what the problem was since she takes the school bus and the other kids are not late. What I found out was that she was holding the door open for everyone to go into the school, holding the door. And when I asked her about it, she said, "Mama says it's really nice of me to hold the door for people." My 5-year-old called me out to the principal So I got the phone call from the principal about encouraging holding the door open and that I need to tell her not to do that anymore. Mama says it's okay to stop holding the door open. He proceeded by saying, and we joked about it, how sweet is that, right? If that's the worst thing we have going for us, I'm okay with that. But he did proceed to tell me that I just feel your daughter is too nice and has too much compassion. My response exactly, wow, is that possible? Is it possible to be too nice and have too much compassion? So that's story number 1 from 21 years ago. Story number 2, and then I promise you we're going to get into our topic, which is integrity. But I'm going to give you a second story first. Fast forward 20 years later, last year, I took myself to Costa Rica for six weeks. I was going to say 6 months. That would be amazing. 6 weeks, still pretty good. I showed up there on New Year's Eve, so I celebrated the new year turning over to 2022. I woke up in a new place January 1st, 2022, and I spent the next 6 weeks there. Now, if you've ever traveled to Costa Rica, I know specifically for Costa Rica that you have to have, as an outsider, you are required to have your return ticket already set, and it has to be in less than 90 days. You can leave at 90 days for 2 or 3 days and come back and get another 90 days, but you have to leave. We love you, but you can't stay here. You can come back in 3 days, though. And a lot of people do that live there. They'll go and live there for 90 days, and then they'll just cross the border and go hang out in one of the other countries, go down to Panama for 3 days, and then come back to Costa Rica. Normally, when you arrive in Costa Rica, they will check your flight. Again, it's required to have your return flight. They'll check your return flight and stamp your passport for the date of your return, because get out of our country. We love you, but leave. Your flight is this, now go. I would like to say it's my charm, but it was probably my lack of understanding upon arriving to immigration in Costa Rica. This poor gentleman that had the pleasure of visiting with me, I confused him. I was confused. We were all confused. He could tell, you are an innocent, you have no idea, young woman from Minnesota, you're good. I'm going to stamp you and get you out of my line because I have people to deal with. So he stamped my passport for 90 days instead of stamping it for what should have been 21 days, so I was supposed to only stay for three weeks. But he stamped it for 90. So fast forward, I have my 3 weeks on the farm. It's fabulous. Love all of it. Fell deeply in love with Costa Rica. And during my time there as a paying guest, I'm someone who falls into service very easily. I love helping out. I see someone in need and I'll help them. I see a dirty kitchen that one person is cleaning and I go help them because I'm in Costa Rica. What else do I have to do? It feels joyful to me. You get to connect with the locals, learn a little Spanish as you go, and it just felt really good. So during those first 3 weeks at the farm, I caught myself just jumping in and helping and supporting. Because of that, the owners of the farm invited me to stay on during retreat season. They learned that my passport was stamped for 90 days, and their busiest season was coming up. So Jen, why don't you stay on? You did such a great job helping us. Imagine if we kept you, you're not paying, you get all of your meals. Would you like to stay and offer seva, which is service? Yes, absolutely. So I promptly changed my flight, which at this point is null and void because my passport is stamped for 90 days, so I have extended time to stay. The first retreat comes in, and it's a group of women, probably 10 to 12 women, and they have their own retreat leader. So those of us that are working on the farm are there to support the retreat leader and the participants on their journey, making sure that they're well fed, they're loved, they're cared for. We're there to take care of their needs for them. Not in a luxurious beck and call kind of a way, just as you have committed to this life-changing opportunity, let's have some support for that commitment. which felt like such a gift and a blessing for me. I felt like, you're letting me do this? This feels like such a gift. So as that retreat, they came in and the people were amazing, and these women, and so many women from different walks of life coming together. It's always such a beautiful thing to witness. And I noticed there was one woman in the corner, a lot, by herself, kind of pulled away from people, not really eating, not really connecting, feeling homesick. And that concerned me, that my heart felt that. And a few days into the retreat, I spoke to the owner, and I mentioned to him, I noticed this is going on. She hasn't eaten, she's not connecting. I feel like, can I go talk to her? Because I knew my place is back here. And I don't want to do that. It's not my retreat. So I wanted to be really mindful of boundaries in that space. And he looked at me and he said, "You know what your problem is? You're too compassionate." She's not eating. She's been here for 4 days. She's in the corner by herself. And surely you're joking, right? Too compassionate. One of the other volunteers came over. I'm like, "Is he serious?" And she looked at me and she said, "Yeah, he's serious. And he wants you to stop talking about it." I'm like, "Is somebody else going to go talk to her then?" My brain could not comprehend, how do we let this beautiful being that paid to be here, to have this experience, and in his mind, she's having the perfect experience she's meant to have. And in my mind, what if she needs more support? And those words that he gave me, "Your problem is you're just too compassionate." Now, I don't know about you, but when something comes like that to me, I always choose to take things as a lesson. I choose to take things on and go, where's the truth in this? Do I need to explore this more? Is this something that maybe there is some truth to that I could go deeper within? Or is it that's your deal and I don't need to listen to that anymore? Or is it somewhere in the middle? Right? So I choose to always dig in. I choose to kind of explore. And the first place that I go is Facebook. Research, right? I go for research. So I reach out on Facebook. Mind you, these are my curated people that like me. They don't know maybe all the backstory and all this stuff, but I asked them, is it possible to be too compassionate? I'd been told that before, but hadn't really let it sink in or hadn't thought more about it. But is that possible, to be too compassionate? And I got a couple responses, it depends. Are you being a doormat? Things like that, being mindful of that. And then someone else said, one of the most compassionate people that walked the planet, that walked this great earth of ours, is Mother Teresa. And would we ever look at Mother Teresa and what she did for humanity as not okay? And I don't know about you, but I look at her as someone to aspire to. So, the love that she walked around with, and the grace and the gift, and I love the words that I heard from her, not heard from her, but that I read about her when asked if she will march against the war. "I won't march against the war, but when you have a march for peace, I'm there." So she was very deliberate in her thinking, very deliberate in how she brought things forward, and so compassionate. Such a beautiful being. And so after accumulating my Facebook answers, but really, jokes aside, more importantly, going within and asking how I felt about it, I don't believe it's possible to be too compassionate. If you have a boundary, if you're mindful of how you're showing up, there is this level that I can't help, I care about you. I can't help it, but I do. I can't help it, but I care, and that has trickled down to my daughter, who is still one of the most compassionate people I know, despite me telling her 25 years ago to stop, or 21 years ago to stop holding doors for people, she still is the last one in from holding doors for everyone. So where am I taking us on this compassion journey? I was thinking about integrity and the word integrity. So integrity, I'm going to pull out my definition so I get it correct. Integrity is the quality of being honest and with strong moral principles. Integrity comes from the word integer, which an integer is a whole and undivided number. The other definition for integer, though, is a thing complete in itself. So integrity comes from integer, but what I want us to focus on here is that it's strong and moral principles. Strong and moral principles. So the other thing that I did when thinking about this and thinking about compassion is I went back to that trusted group of Facebook friends and I asked them, what do you think integrity is? Do you see other people as being in integrity or not? Do you feel that other people get to decide if I have integrity or if you have integrity? And the answers were all over the board. They varied significantly. And what I realized very quickly is that integrity and the meaning behind it and how we translate that, if it's strong moral principles, then we need to look at what are the strong moral principles and who's determining what those are. Because I don't need to tell you, we don't have to look very far, that there are strong moral principles over here that people believe very deeply in, and then we go a few feet away and there are strong moral principles over here that people believe in. A couple people even on the post commented specifically about a couple former presidents that they believe. The first two people I think about are, I'm not filling in the blank here because that's not what this time and space is for, I believe. So fill in the blank. I believe that these two people exude integrity. And wouldn't you know it, someone else commented and said, are you kidding me? That? They? No. This person. And then they proceeded to decide and go back and forth on integrity. And so I realized very quickly that to me the question is less about having a conversation around integrity and defining integrity because it's very subjective. And what do we know about subjective? We have as many opinions on integrity as we do number of people in this room. Likewise, we have as many opinions on what are these strong moral principles as we have number of people in this room. I used to, still have them, as a coach supporting other people, I did various things. And during my work, I often realized when I asked someone, what matters to you? Like, what are your values? What are the things that you hang your life on? Like, what do you use as a filter? Danielle Laporte, she's an author, she started the Desire Map. She calls these your core desired feelings. What are your 3 top core desired feelings that you want to take your life through as a filter? So for me, on a business side, my top 3 core desired feelings are rapture, contribution, and inspired. So when an opportunity comes along for me, I take it through those 3 and I decide if it only has 1, the answer is no. I want it to have all 3. If it has 2, then I just kind of check in a little bit. So when I come to share with you at Lake Harriet Spiritual Community, those 3 core desired feelings, rapture, inspired, and contribution, it fits all 3 of those for me. I love this. I love it. Rapture is defined as deep awe and gratitude. I have such deep awe and gratitude for being in this space, being welcomed in this space, for those of you that show up, for those of you that will watch online later, or right now maybe. And then the second one, contribution. I love feeling like I get to contribute. I get to be a part of something bigger. I get to show up in a space, and maybe my intention for today, maybe you'll just give consideration to your values today. What matters to you? What are your guiding principles? And then the third one is inspiration. Inspiration, to me, is, Wayne Dyer talked about inspiration as in spirit. Am I living from a place where I'm a vessel and I take things in and just allow them to be shared? And whenever I choose to, maybe I shouldn't be telling you this. There's that little voice over here maybe this is something you shouldn't say. And then the other part of me is like, oh no, you say all the things, Jen, so just tell them. So when I do a speaking engagement, I go through and I pull out a couple nuggets that I know I want to share, and then I pray about it, and I get in meditation, and I trust that I'm going to be in spirit because this is a lined up opportunity, and the words are just going to come. They just show up. Thank you, by the way. They just show up. And so in my work, so those are my core desired feelings when it comes to my work. My personal feelings are probably very similar with compassion. Shocking. Compassion is probably my number one thing that matters. I just want to know people know that they matter. I just want them to feel like they're enough. Because there are so many people walking around that just don't feel that way. So for me, that is very important. Call me a doormat if you want. Tell me I'm too compassionate if you want, and I'm going to turn around and give you a hug anyway. So that's the way that goes. So as a coach, I created these little cards, and each of them, there's 76 of them. I didn't bring all of them, but each of them have a word on them. So I would take people through, because often, like I said, I'd start working with someone and I'd ask them, what are your values? What matters to you? Do you know what's guiding your life? And most people are like, well, I know that I want to climb this ladder and I'm working toward this thing, or I want to buy this house, or, my wife would love it if, or I want to be able to do this for my kids, or fill in the blank. It's all across the board. Not one time working with people did anyone ever look me in the face and say, this, and this are my 5 top values. And so I would pull out this stack of 76 or 77 cards, and we would start working through all of them. It's a lot to start digging through. For example, harmony. That's a good one, right? Courage. Who doesn't want courage? But is it a top one for you? Challenge. I like a good challenge, but is it a top one for me? Freedom. That's a big one for me. Knowledge, adventure, fairness, and the list goes on. 77 of them, and I pulled up a list, and there's you could look, core values, a list of 250. What? You could get lost in that, which is why most of us have never even considered, how are we leading our lives? What is the thing that is helping to guide us forward? What is the thing that is keeping me on track? Is it this perceived goal, this thing outside of me that hopefully if I attain it, then I'll feel like I'm enough or I'm fulfilled? Or are you allowing yourself to look within and say, this is how I want to feel? If I feel this way and take these actions, naturally what unfolds is going to be in alignment because I'm taking it from this place. I'm taking action from this place instead, which is what I want to encourage you to do. Rather than look at that out there, or rather than have this interesting, curious idea of what integrity means to you, what if you just decide what my morals are and I'm going to live those? I'm going to live in alignment with those. And if they match up with that other person, great. And if they don't, that's okay. Because what I have found more often than not is that the more I get in line with myself, the more I have integrity with myself, the less I have it with the majority of the people. Because I don't believe we're all meant to have the same values. If we all walked around saying, well, my top 3 values are courage and freedom and adventure, Well, what about the moms who really value being at home with their kids? Not that I don't value that, but that's not a top one for me. I'm not in that space and time in my life. But imagine if instead of looking at someone and say, well, you don't line 100% with the way that I think, so I automatically believe that you are out of integrity. When for them, what if they are perfectly in line with themselves, and so for them, they are in integrity with themselves? Who gets to decide? Who gets to decide? It's so individual and it's so subjective. So instead of talking more about integrity, I want you to consider structural integrity. So similar to integrity, but when we add the word structural to it, we're talking about a building. We're talking about something that is made. We're talking about something that is put together. And the definition of structural integrity is along the lines of knowing how much it can handle and allowing it to handle that much is kind of the Jen's paraphrasing way to look at it. So the structural integrity of this platform is X number of bodies or X amount of weight, and let's allow it to handle all of that. Let's give it everything it can handle because it's going to be structurally sound. It's going to hold its structural integrity for all of that. So I want to take that concept and bring that back to us as humans. And I want you to consider, what is your human structural integrity? Maybe not physically, not how much can I carry, but what is my foundation? Think of it like foundation. Every really great building, and even the terrible buildings, all buildings start with a foundation. Some are better than others, right? So what is your foundation? What is the foundation of who you are? Where does that come from? Is it something that's been passed down, and you've never questioned it? So my beautiful daughter and I were talking about this the other day, knowing that I get to come and talk to you. And I asked her, so would you say that compassion is part of your main values, your main focus? And she's like, Mom, it is, but I don't know that I want it to be. Because I'm in a place right now where I don't think I can protect myself from the hurt. I feel like being compassionate is hurting me too much, so I need a better boundary around that, which I think is so insightful and such great awareness to have. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I would like to be a little less compassionate. I would like there to be another value or another moral or something else that stands higher than that. We could go through our list of 77 or 250 and find something that probably fits perfectly. And then bring that to Jazz and say, let's practice this instead. So that you can have the undertone of compassion with the whatever is going to be the one that is on top. So thinking about your foundation, and when I think about foundation, I automatically go back to choice. Choice is one of the greatest lessons that I ever learned. It's one of my favorite lessons to teach, and I will probably talk about it until the day they turn me into ash and bury me as a tree. Choice. So often we don't question what's coming in. Like I said, are these things passed down to you? Are these beliefs that you've just taken on from someone else, like I did to my daughter? I taught her that compassion is such a great value of mine, but is it hers, and does it serve her the way that maybe it serves me? My mom had other values that over time I realized those were hers. Those don't serve me the way that they serve her. My mom was someone who she tended to be, not that she valued insecurity, but she tended to be a little more insecure and a little more laid back, outspoken in certain ways, but a little more laid back and reserved and just kind of let things unfold. She never really allowed herself to question things. And then I come along, and I lived that way for a long time until the lesson of choice shows up. I'm like, oh, you mean I can choose differently? I don't have to take that on? I don't have to believe my life is going to just be this culmination because that's where I came from and that's where she came from. So recognizing choice. When was the last time you questioned your thinking? When was the last time you questioned how you're showing up? When was the last time you questioned anything? The meal that you're eating, the clothes that you're wearing. We were having a beautiful conversation before service began about a beautiful dress. And where am I going to wear, and think of the most beautiful dress you've ever seen. Or gentlemen, think of the most brilliant, whatever, fill in the blank for you, costume, outfit, whatever it is. Think of the most amazing, out there, beautiful thing you've ever seen. And the question came up, well, where am I ever going to wear this? Anywhere you want. Anywhere you want. Because why not? Because somewhere out there, we've decided that our limitation, our beliefs are only as good as they are accepted by our peers, our social groups, society. And that's why when we see someone like us, we're like, oh, you're in integrity. Me too. That feels good. Versus seeing someone else and go, oh, well, we don't believe the same things, so you must be out of integrity. And they're looking at me going, we don't believe the same things, so you must be out of integrity. What if that doesn't matter? What if we take that off the table altogether and just look at the choices? Questioning, wondering, what are the thoughts that I continue to think? Over 13 years ago, I was at a conference in Chicago. It was my first big personal development self-help conference that I attended. And I was sitting in the front row. Thanks, Ella, for sitting in the front row. You two are pretty close, so I'll take that. I was sitting in the front row because I was always like, if I'm going to be here, give me all of the information. I want to learn it all. So I'm sitting in the front row, and I'm listening to this man talk about how my limiting beliefs are just that. They don't need to stop me anymore. I can change my belief, and I'm going to change my life. And I sat there thinking, you have no idea what I've been through. There's no way my life is going to change if I told you all of these terrible things that had happened to me for my first 32 years of my life. You would understand why I think the way that I think. And yet he promised, you write a new belief on your board, and I promise you we are going to change it this weekend. And so we went through this little action where we ended up breaking our boards. Like, we had a board holder and went through the new thinking process of how to actually break the board. And my board took 3 times to break because I feel like my inner's like just holding on. Like, we got to hold on to our beliefs, right? Have you ever met someone where you have the new thing and they're like, no, I just don't believe it. But I have the evidence right here for you. No, that can't be. Got it right here. Like neon lights. I feel like that was my beliefs inside. They're like, nah, it's not going to happen. So I kept proving myself right. Right? Have you heard that before? What we think about, our brain, our reticular activating system, inside our brain, the tiniest little piece, size of a pinky tip, inside our brain is going to prove us true. That's why that saying is, if you believe the world is filled with cruel and nasty people, are you going to find them? Yeah. If you believe the world is filled with kind and loving people, are you going to find them? Yes, because our brain wants us to be true. It wants us to be true, and that's why we continue doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over until some random Sunday morning in March you show up and go, shoot, I got to question this again. I teach this stuff and I get stuck in it, and then I question again and find one more little thing I can tweak over and over and over and over. So without mentioning names, I went to Vegas recently with 2 other humans that will remain unmentioned for the fact that we are alive and it will be saved forever. So I'm in Vegas with these 2 humans who are very dear to me, by the way, and we were sitting in the Aria hotel lobby. I don't know if you've been to Vegas, but if you have and you've been to Aria, you know it's beautiful. This might be one of the most beautiful hotel lobbies I've ever been in my life. And I wouldn't say I'm a Vegas fan. I don't gamble. It's a fairly inexpensive trip. It was supposed to be warm. It wasn't. It snowed, but it wasn't as cold as here, so we go to Vegas. We eat good food, and we do a lot of walking, and we went to Death Valley, which, check out Death Valley someday. So we're sitting in Aria Hotel, and it's big and expansive and beautiful, and it was a Chinese New Year, so they had decorations and the tree, I wish I could show you what I'm looking at right now. It was stunning, stunning. And in some of the hotels in Vegas, they allow dogs, which I think is fabulous because I love dogs. And anyone that knows me knows if you bring, pop out a dog, I'm all yours. Or I'm all for your dog, whatever it is. I love dogs. So we would see dogs and I stop and I pet the dogs. You might, if a dog walks by right now, maybe I leave you and I go see the dog. I love the dogs. So we're sitting on a bench in the lobby, this big expansive lobby, waiting for our reservation while we soothe our tender feet after walking 40,000 steps for the day. So we're sitting there and I look over and I have human on my left, human on my right. I look over and there is a man with his dog standing in the lobby. And they're no further than probably, 20 feet away, right? So I lean over and I'm not shy about this. I make it known that I love your dog. So I lean over and I talk to the dog. I don't even really acknowledge the human, not because I don't care, because I just got done telling you how much I care about people, but human, dog. So lean over and I talk to the dog and I say, "Hi, dog. Hi." You got to have that voice, right? "Hey, buddy." And a moment later, the guy walks over with his dog. And I thought that he was walking out the door, but he walks over with his dog and he stopped right in front of me. And he looked at me, I'm like, "Oh, you brought your dog over." And then I look down at the dog and I talk to the dog and I pet the dog and I hang out with the dog and I visit with the dog. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." And that was the extent of the human interaction. He walks away, I'm like, "Oh, bye, buddy." And they walk off. In the next moment, I, in all my joyful self, genuinely say, wasn't that the sweetest thing he could have done? He saw me looking at his dog, and he walked his dog over. Oh, amazing. One of the humans didn't say a thing. The other human said, "No, that is totally creepy. That's so creepy that he saw you looking at his dog, he took advantage of the situation and went on and on and on, genuinely creeped out because the man brought the dog over." Who's right? We both are. It's subjective. It's experience. It's personal thinking. I tend to believe the world is filled with kind, loving, and caring people. Do I meet them all the time? Do I ever run into people that are less than kind? Yeah. Did I tell you about that time that guy gave me a gummy with fentanyl in it? There's a story for you. Do I still respond with kindness because how I respond is up to me? Always. Point being, even though we lean into and believe inherently the goodness of people, are there some not so great interactions? For sure. On the flip side, if I inherently believe the world is filled with creepy people, I'm probably going to find reasons to believe people are creepy. or men are jerks, or fill in any blank that you can think of. But what does that come down to? I could stop the man and his dog and ask him, would you please tell us your intent so we know how to interpret that? But when's the last time you've been able to do that in any situation? Would you please sit down and tell me actually what you meant by that without feeling offended that I pulled you aside to ask you? Well, that's not awkward, right? We don't pull people aside. We're not going to start doing that. That's why we have our filters. And you know who's responsible for the filters? We are. We are. But most of us go through our life and don't even question our filters. We don't even question the choices. We don't even question the thinking process. It's just so automatic. For me, it was automatic to say how sweet it was. And for this other person, it was automatic to say how creepy it was. Both are right because that's the truth for both of us. My truth is people are kind and loving and caring. Their truth, in this case, is men are, well, not. And that is what came forward. So when we talk about integrity, I want you to think not necessarily about the word integrity, but the deeper around it is morals, principles, values, those strong ones, the ones that lead our lives. And do you question those? Have you looked at those? For me, I'm proud to say, not proud that it stung when he looked at me in Costa Rica and said, you know what your problem is? Your problem is you're too compassionate. It hurt. That hurt. I was shocked. And I actually questioned it. And I actually wondered for a couple of months, like, do I need to not be so caring? And I'm proud to say that as time has passed, I own that. I'm compassionate. My heart breaks a lot. But not in a way that I can't handle it like my daughter. Right now, she doesn't have enough of the tools or the experience or whatever is the thing that is needed. Time, maybe it's just time. But I'm proud to say that I still pick up those pieces and love again, and I think it makes me love even more. I think it makes me love a variety of people even more because I wear that and I practice it all the time. But I practice it. So what are the values that you want to practice? What is something that maybe we say, for example, in this country, we say that we value education. We value education, and all we have to do is look at our school system or our teachers and their pay to know that we probably don't value it as much as, let's say, sports, right? And I'm not here to dog on sports. I enjoy sports. But please don't have the conversation about having a higher value for education when they don't even exist in the same field. And what I want to say to that is it's unconscious. A lot of that is just unconscious thinking that hasn't even been really discovered or dug into. So maybe not to a specific certain's fault, which is what I want you to hear. Maybe there's a value that you've unconsciously been holding, and because of this conversation, it's going to spark and come forward and go, oh, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Which is where I want you to go with it. Rather than, wow, I'm a jerk. I can't believe I've been living that way. What a jerk I am, and you spiral down in shame. Instead, isn't that interesting? Because what does that awareness do? That awareness gives us the gift of change. The awareness is the impetus that will get change to come. So my invitation for you today, ask the question, what are my values? Is there one? Don't start with them all. Is there one that maybe isn't serving me anymore? Is there a belief that I've held all of these years that likely was passed down from someone trusted, parent, clergy, teacher, older adult, that you just took on as your own? Maybe it's not serving you anymore. By all means, wear the dress. By all means, put the clothes on that feel good to you. So ask yourselves those questions and then notice and say, isn't that interesting? And allow the awareness to bring in the change. And as you do that, I promise you, whether it looks like it from the outside or not, you will be living an aligned life with integrity with yourself. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, Jen. That was quite a lot to unpack. And so I thought I was feeling pretty settled when I came in. Now I've got lots of questions. So thank you for that. That's what I mean. There's always some amazing speakers that come and get you thinking about who you are and what you want to be. That reminds me, I forgot to mention, 9 a.m. next Sunday is the Sound Healing with Christian Wurtenberger. If you've never attended, please come. She does a great job with the singing bowls, and I love her rain drum, and she's got a beautiful voice as well. And then the 10:30 motivational service will be led by Lynette Crane, and she does a lot with heart math, which is, in my opinion, is a combination of spirituality and science. So do come back for that. So as you all know, Lake Harriet Spiritual Community does not have any other source of income except for the generous donations of the people who attend. So in just a moment, the ushers will be passing the basket. If you can give today, appreciate it. If not, consider a regular donation through PayPal, and there's information on our website for that. So thank you for all that you give. It keeps the lights on, the doors open, helps us do a little maintenance around the building, which is old and needs a lot of help. So thank you.
Why don't you let it be? Still waters run deep. Yes, it do. Yes, it do. Oh, yeah. If you only believe when you're down and out, when you're on the street, when evening falls so high, I will comfort you. I'll take your part. Oh, when darkness comes and pain alone, you'll all around just like a breeze over troubled water. I will lay me down just like a breeze over troubled water. I will lay me down. Sail on, silver sail on by. Your time has come.
Well, thank you for your donations, and if you'll help me bless the offering by repeating after me. God's perfect love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. Oh. Well, let's see. We got a few people we can circle up. How about around the first row up here? And then Jen will lead us in a closing.
I always ask you to look around the room, and I'm going to ask you to do that again. Just take a moment and glance at these beautiful faces that join us today, that are in this space with us. And I want you to just notice. Notice the differences, notice the similarities, notice the kindness. Look at these beautiful eyes. And I want us to just be grateful for the similarities, be grateful for the differences, and allow ourselves to go within, and maybe, just maybe, we can see how we're more similar than we are different. So again, I invite you, as you leave today and head on your way and move about your day, to notice the values, notice how you're showing up. Maybe celebrate how you're showing up. We don't always have to look at the negative. Let's look at the positive too. So find something you can celebrate about, and then something where you're just going to notice and have awareness and say, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? All right. Thank you so much. Woo-hoo. Have a beautiful day.